There was when we had Trump on, people were like, why didn't you ask him about Epstein? I was like, so he could give the same answer that he's given 100 times about being with Epstein? Like, do you think that if we asked him about Epstein, that he'd be like, yeah, I used to fuck kids with him? Like, you think he's just going to open up because he's hanging out with it? It's going to be the same answer every single time. Right. So, yeah.
And so, look, obviously, I oppose very strongly what Akash is saying, where he's deporting people without due process, and we stand up to that. But you know what we also have to do as a party is say, we hear, why did the guy get elected twice? It's because people are totally livid at the government.
Yeah, I think
real quick, sorry to interrupt. And a very important thing, I think, for both parties to understand, and I think you're seeing this happen a lot with like the Democrats, is your compass is not very wide for the things you're used to, right? Like, I don't need to try pizza in that many different places. I know pizza. I'm from New York, right? But a wild food in Singapore, I'm absolutely going to be open to and I'm going to try. And I think what happens with like institutional Republicans or Democrats, we're very rigid in what we'll accept for them because we don't expect much. The outsider that's presenting these ideas that are wild will indulge in because we need some form of change. And I think that's like why Mamdani is so popular right now in New York. It's like, I know the institutional Democrats, the Cuomos, are not going to do anything different, and my life isn't going to change at all. So I have I have rigidity with them. But with this complete outsider, maybe there's hope. Maybe there's an opportunity that things can change. I think that's probably what a lot of us thought with the Epstein files with Trump. We're like, yeah, maybe we'll get some justice for 1,000 underage girls who've been victimized. That'd be really fucking nice because they're campaigning on it. And then when he goes, we're not going to see it, we have every right to be frustrated by that.
I think people would be shocked at how similar the thought process that leads someone to vote for Donald Trump is to the thought process that leads someone to vote for Zoran Mamdani.
No,
the thought process is almost identical, I would bet. And one thing that frustrates me as someone who probably leans liberal but would love to lean more is there's one party that you would think really preaches empathy and understanding people, and it's the Democrats. But when it comes to voting for Trump, there is not even an attempt to understand what makes over 50 or over half the country, whatever the exact percent is, vote for that guy. They're not all idiots and enablers and whatever other awful adjective you want to throw at
just some of us.
Just some. Some are for sure. There's a percentage that are. Look, I'm not saying if you vote for Trump, you're racist, but if you're racist, you're probably not voting for the Democrats.
There's plenty of racists. There's plenty of anti-Semitic. Exactly.
There's an understanding of, okay, something made a lot of other people vote for it. What was it?
Yeah.
They're not all bad people. You can't just do that and feel better about yourself and expect to improve your party or, more importantly, the country. And I think that's getting lost in all of this. A lot of them are great
Americans. I mean, they voted for him partly because their jobs were shipped offshore. Look, they see a district like mine, $14 trillion in Silicon Valley.
1,000%.
Johnstown, Ohio, or Lorain, Ohio. They said, look, there are no factories. Our kids are not going to have a good shot. And then these politicians are sending billions of our dollars and getting into these overseas wars. And this guy is saying, I'm going to stop these wars. This guy's going to saying, I'm going to bring back manufacturing. This guy understands that I haven't had a fair shot in life. And, Rose family, they just got here. My parents are middle class, but metaphorically, a lot of the immigrant communities, they're doing really well. What about you? You built the steel. You built this country. You fought in the world wars. If we don't understand that sentiment and understand that there's a righteous anger that a lot of Trump voters have, we're never going to start to win them back. But the point is not just, okay, now let's go talk to them and say, you're not, we want to listen. The point is, what are we going to do? How are we going to actually change things? And what I think what the test of leadership on both parties is to channel the anger, but then to put something forward that is actually going to solve people's problems, that is actually going to be solution oriented. I call it economic patriotism, that we should be having 1,000 trade schools. We should have investments in new factories across this country, a Marshall Plan for America. We should stop putting trillions of dollars in overseas wars and start investing in this country. But whatever it is, I think if you start out with, we were great and Trump voters are just wrong, we're going to keep losing.
Yeah, I like that idea of investment in America, and I think that's very enticing to a lot of voters that just really feel partyless right now. And they're struggling. And I think when you're struggling, when your life is pretty good, just calling someone else a bad guy works because you fear like your life could get worse. when you already feel like your life is worse, you're just going towards hope. Whatever has more hope works. If you go, that guy's a bad guy, he's going to make your life worse. You're like, I already can't afford to eat and I already can't afford rent. How much worse can this get? That guy's telling me he's going to make 200,000 new, rent-freeze units in New York City. I like that guy. That sounds really good. Who knows if he can do it, but maybe there's a chance. And I think that's why a lot of the democratic socialists are like really resonating. I see that popping up all over the country. It's not just in New York City. I can see that becoming incredibly popular, and especially in the way that it's kind of like rebuking the traditional old guard Democrats, which I think a lot of us don't really, I feel like we kind of just don't really trust them right now.
Yeah. And
I totally agree. And, look, the first thing is just to say that the system isn't working. Because if you're one of those folks who can't afford rent, who can't afford to buy a house, right? That was the American dream. You don't know if you're going to get a good job. And then you're like, well, let's just keep throwing people out. Because why should I vote for the same thing? That obviously works. The American people have been doing this since, I'd say, 2004. 9 out of the 10 last election cycles, they've just thrown the other side out because their life isn't improving. And I think there's an opportunity not just to, mimic Donald Trump or to mimic Mamdani. You can have your own ideas. You can have fresh ideas, but you got to start by saying the system is bad. People are getting screwed. Here's what we're going to do differently. And then, let's have a lot of new debate and new voices about where we need to go.
You had a tweet that went viral. I don't want to misrepresent you, but it was, you polled people about were Dems more upset about or attacking Mamdani or attacking Trump's big beautiful bill, and more people voted that Dems attacked Mamdani more. I hope I'm not butchering. What was your motivation for the tweet, and why do you think we got those results?
Well, because 1 week after Mamdani won, all you were hearing in the media is, is this the end of the Democratic Party? Is this some existential crisis with the Democratic Party because Mamdani has not condemned, unequivocally globalized the Intifada? Well, look, I condemn globalized the Intifada, but the point is that really that's what you got out of the Mamdani election. Not that the guy was out there talking about why the price of halal went from
$8 to $10.
He would talk about that.
Yeah.
That's what you took out of that campaign. And then instead of talking about the stuff that Trump was going to do to take away health care and child care from working class families, you're attacking Mamdani as the problem of the Democratic Party. And the headlines were, Democratic Party has existential crisis. The 33-year-old kid getting elected because he did social media videos talking about why people's lives suck is an existential crisis for the party? I mean, come on. And that's, I think, the frustration people felt. And then, then you get then I got attacked by some of the people in the establishment. Well, that's not true. So senator spent 5 hours on the House floor, and they would spend more time talking about the Trump bill. That wasn't the point. The point is, what did it feel like to folks? And what it feels like to folks is that anytime you have a new voice, anytime you have someone questioning the status quo, the whole party gets uneasy and they come down at him. I mean, the guy's going to be mayor, and you still got these billionaires out there plotting about like how you keep Andrew Cuomo back or how do you get Adams back. It just makes no sense.